Sales Ascender, are you charging enough? Well, if you're interested in tripling your prices overnight, then you're in the right place. Sales Ascender, Chris here. Hey, today we are talking about a very, very important must-hear conversation, and it's about pricing. Have you ever got the objection, oh, you're too expensive? And the Spotlight member that we're bringing on today that I get to introduce to you in just a second says, if you're not charging $100,000 or more, it's not serious. Hey, just real quick, in your world, what would it look like if you sold $100,000 product, service, program, etc.? How would that affect your world? If that's interesting to you, then you're in the right place. You're going to need to meet today's Spotlight member and Sales Ascender. Our community is insane. How much talent is in this community and is growing daily. So today we're going to dive in with Jonathan. Jonathan, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you so much for having me. Always excited to hop on to a live stream and talk about sales and price increases because it's absolutely changed my life over the last several years, and just so many windows have been opening up that I just love to talk about it.
Yes, and today, so everyone listening, watching, Jonathan has put together a summit that's coming up. We totally need to talk about it. We need to dive into it. We need to know what to expect because it's around this whole conversation of increasing prices. And just everyone listening, watching, Jonathan, we may or may not lose Jonathan. He was at the Philippines that you're. Where in the world are you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm on a tiny island in the middle of nowhere. It's so remote that my internet connection is always a cell phone connection. So don't be surprised if the power goes out, if the internet goes out. It did at the time last night. We have backup battery, we have generators, but there's always something crazy happening here. That's why the signal's a little bit fuzzy. I apologize for that, but yeah, what gets me so excited is that what I always thought was expensive is not. So I used to charge for my top service $20,000. And the last two clients ago said, oh, that's too cheap. You must suck. I'm going to hire someone else. And I said, what? And then the client after that goes, oh, I thought it would be more. And I was like, what am I doing? Why did it take me 2 in a row not to learn that lesson? But the last two clients, both in a row, in different, at least the second one hired me, but the first one was like, 20 grand, you must be terrible. And I was like, what? So the clients literally rejected me because my competitors were charging more money, which I didn't know. So I learned that lesson the hard way. And that's when I began on this journey. I said, I'm going to start interviewing people that I look up to, people that charge more than me, that ask bigger numbers than me. Because when I say $20,000 and I go silent, because I'm like, oh, that's so much money. No one's going to say yeah, right? Here comes the negotiation, right? But I didn't think the negotiation was going to be like, why is it so low? What are you hiding? So when I started getting clients like that, I said, I got to learn more. I got to bring myself to the next tier. I used to make that assumption. I said, oh, my clients can only afford X or they can only afford Y, because some of the people who are on my list, they do have a limited budget and they can only afford a little bit amount of money. But golly, there's some people in there that they are only interested in the top of the line. They only want to fly private. They only want to drive around in a Maybach. And for them, they come in and they say, well, what's your most expensive thing? And that's the first thing they say. And hey, those clients are amazing.
So you mentioned just multiple things already. Let's hang here just for a second. Then first thing that I remember hearing and what you're saying is kind of sparking this, and it's simply this. The number one reason any business person, coach, consultant, agency owner has not sold $100, $100,000 product, $300,000 product, or $1 million product is number one, they don't have one. And so sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. When the things that you're saying, this is so important for our audience and everyone to hear. When we heard this, the first thing we did was just go create our $300,000 offer. Well, what if I don't sell? It doesn't matter. When somebody hears that you have some thought around a $300,000, $500,000, or like a huge $100,000 product, it puts you in a different category. You start attracting a different avatar. And Jonathan, that's exactly what you're saying. Is sometimes if you're presenting your product or service, you might have a great client right in front of you, but they don't take you seriously because they're actually looking to pay more and be served at a higher level.
I can tell you sometimes I've been shopping with someone and then later on I found out they had a more expensive product. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? I would have bought that. So even as a consumer, you're never going to pay $100,000 or $20,000 if you don't say it, if you don't have that product. And that's really revolutionary. The only way you can find out is by offering it. And that's the thing is people, you got to let them buy more stuff. That's like a crazy revelation I had, and I learned it from some of these interviews that are part of the summit I've put together, is that your customer's not done buying until they're done buying. So let them buy more stuff if they want to.
Yes. It's crazy how simple that thought is, but how important it is to not overlook. I'm just curious because what we're talking about is so important. We're talking about pricing. How do we price our products and services? And all of us have gone through this cycle. I know there's one of the objection of you're too expensive. Let's talk about your personal experience. How have you dealt with that objection of you're too expensive?
I can tell you that as I keep raising my prices, I stopped getting it. Now I get the you're too cheap, which is weird. At like when I was $4,000 or $8,000, I would get the wow, that's so expensive. Then I jumped to 20 and people start saying that's too cheap. So what people do is never what you think you're gonna do. Like I read this book when I was a kid that said 90% of the things you worry about never happen. And that's when I stopped being, I used to be such a worrier. And I was like, oh my gosh, what wasted energy that you worry and then you worry about the worrying and then it never happens anyways. All the things you plan out for. So I don't know if you've ever done this where you're about to make a sales call and you write down every possible objection. This happened to me
Mm.
more when I was dating. I would write down every possible reason a girl would say no. And I would write an entire A4 sheet of paper with all these like diagrams and responses. And every time I tried it, by question 2, we were off the paper. So
Mm.
I realized you can never know what someone's going to say because it's no matter how much you plan, you have everything written out, and they just say something like, "Oh, I'm in the car right now, so I can only talk for 2 minutes." And you go, That's not on my paper.
Wasn't
What are you
wasn't ready
doing?"
for that one.
I thought I was pretty clear. I ask a series of questions, and we go down the flow chart. You done blown the flow chart out of the water because time limit was not part of the plan. So and the same thing is for sales calls. I don't know if this ever happened to you. If you've ever thought of an objection, and then that's the one the person said, because that's never happened for me.
Yes. I'm curious, have you ever been in this because you meant the comment you made was when you charge like 4 grand or 8 grand, you're like you would get that more often than when you charge more money. Have you ever been in that cycle where you're like you're not charging enough and then you finally do close clients, but you like those clients are sucking so much time and it's like not the quite best fit and it's like almost more draining, but then it's like this weird thing like you start charging more, they actually require less, and you have more to put back in your business. You actually end up serving them more and you enjoy it more. Have you experienced those cycles as well?
Yeah, so my main service that I've been doing for the past about 6 years is ghostwriting. And for the last 10 years, I've been doing different types of product creation for clients. And the more a client pays me, the less work I have to do. So my last client was my most expensive. And I would say to him things like, "Oh, I'd like to know a little bit about your backstory." A day later, he would send me a 2-hour recording of him telling me every personal story he has for his entire life. And normally for clients, when I was lower priced, it's like pulling teeth to get him on the phone with me. And I've had clients where I send them the rough draft of the book and they don't read it for a year. And I'm just waiting
Wow.
and waiting. He sent me back a 2-hour video reviewing the rough draft, changing every story he wanted to change, words he wanted to change. 36 hours later with a message, "Sorry it took so long." And I
Wow.
was like, "What?" Like, what's happening here? And I was like, this is the reverse of what I'm used to because I'm used to clients really making it hard for me. Like, tell me a story about you. Tell me something good you've done. All of these questions were so hard to get answers to. And then as you charge more, because the clients value it more, I guess, they
Yeah.
put in this effort because I'm used to, clients going, "Oh, okay, you're the ghostwriter, figure it out, look it up on Wikipedia, do all the work by yourself, do the research on your own." But as I started raising my prices, the clients do more and more work for me. This project was one of the easiest I've ever done because every time he didn't like something, he was like, "Oh, I don't like the way your editor edited the book." So and then he goes, "So I re-edited the whole thing last night. I didn't go to bed." I was like, "What?" Normally someone says that, "So redo it. So hire another editor." That's what I'm used to. And you'll find that clients, when they value your time, they treat it very differently. The first really rich client I ever had, I was doing something SEO services a decade ago. And on our very first phone call, he goes, and he was a land developer. So he would, if you wanted to hunt in the South, Georgia, Alabama, anywhere, you would buy land from him. The cheapest piece of land his company had was $1.5 million. And he
Okay.
goes, "Don't take this the wrong way, but you'll never hear my voice again because I'm literally losing money by talking to you." And he never spoke to me again. I would send him one email a month. And because to him, what I was charging, which I thought was a lot of money, was so low. He was like, "As long as you generate one sale in the next century, it's your entire salary is covered." I was like, "Wow, that's one way to see it." And that's the difference between a client who their worst product is $1.5 million and people who are charging like a chiropractor is making $50 an hour. So I learned throughout my career that when you deal with people that are ultra wealthy, or who if someone's charging $5,000 an hour for their time, they're not going to hop on the phone with you if you're charging $100 an hour, because they're losing $4,900 by talking to you. So
Right.
you can get these amazing people who will do more work, put in more effort, and put more value onto your work, and refer you to more of their friends because you're charging more. They start to respect the process more, or value the end result more. And either way, it's a better experience for you as the provider. I mean, I'm sure you've done this before, where you've done coaching with someone and they didn't do the work, and then they don't get the result, and it feels bad. I hate that. And I'm like, oh, I've been sitting an hour a week on the phone with you for 6 months. I want you to get the result. But then as you raise your prices, the odds of them doing it actually go up, which is really revolutionary for me, at least.
There's the psychological process, this internal individual journey as a seller, as a business owner, as an agency service provider, where like am I worth it, or am I valuable? And like there's all those types of things. And if we're able to just take that, I mean, honestly address it, process it, do it, all the things. But if we just set it over here and you look at markets and how transactions work with what you're saying, everything exactly you're saying. I want everyone to hear this. That's why I'm still kind of pausing on it for a second. When you start to understand exactly what Jonathan just said, you you can triple your prices or more, serve clients, get bigger results, more impact, because you're playing a different game. You start playing. So if you're frustrated with not making enough and you're not quite sure how to price your offers, and it's kind of confusing, and you're in that place, you've got to keep leaning into this conversation. You need to consume more of this type of thinking, because it will radically change your life, just like it has Jonathan's, mine, and anyone else's. So that said, I know that the summit's coming up. This is going to be a great place for people to continue this conversation and learning this type of content. And I pulled it up here just so we can all look at it together. Walk us through this, like what to expect. There's so many summits, Jonathan. Like, why on earth, outside of Sean and I being, thank you for having us on and getting to be a part of it, by the way. But outside of us, why should somebody come to this event?
Sure. So I actually put together an event based on what I wanted to learn. So I interviewed people that are better than me at something and charge more than me. I don't have a $300,000 product. So that's why I interviewed you. Like, now I realize I need one, right? I realized from each conversation, I learned from different phone sales methods or different price ascension methods. Each person I interview is an expert in a different area. I noticed behind you, you've got your ClickFunnels to Comma Club award. So one of the guys I interviewed, Devon Brown, he's the MC every year at the ClickFunnels Live. He's the guy who introduces everyone. And I've known him for 10 years. He's one of the first people I met at a conference. And we talk about how he went from charging very little to doing these massive conferences. Now it's all he does. He's become the go-to MC for basically anyone who uses ClickFunnels platform, which is a lot of people. And
Yeah.
I've known him, I've known Russell for 10 years. And he talked about exactly his pricing and how people who pay full price and don't ask any questions are the best clients. Whereas the people who are trying to negotiate him down are the toughest. And so we interview people from a whole spectrum. You think, oh, wow, that's such a unique service. How do you become the highest paid MC in our industry? How do you become the go-to guy? And then I interview people like Laura Betterly, who has worked on amazing projects. She used to sell software with Ice-T in the 90s, and now she does SEO for
Oh, nice.
basically every internet guru you can think of, from Frank Kern to Ryan Dice and everyone in between. And we talked about how, as an SEO agency, she's like, yeah, I started raising my prices so I could fire the clients I don't like. And each of these people is an expert at something different. So whatever you do, whether you're selling your own coaching or you want to succeed as an affiliate, I introduce you to someone who that's what they do. And the reason I know the interviews are good is because I learned something new from every conversation. I interviewed people who all make more money than me. So people think, my following list, like, wow, Jonathan, you're doing so well. You live on a tropical island. You live in paradise. You work whenever you want. You have all of this freedom. And I said, yeah, but now I'm going to introduce you to people that are even richer and more successful than me, because that's who I want to interview. And
Yeah.
each of these conversations, and I keep them short and tight, they're all 20 to 24 minutes long. So the same length as a Simpsons episode without the commercials. So it's really a nice, tight amount of time. And you can dive into different processes where people charge different amounts of money, whether you want to do phone sales or never get on the phone, whether you want to do webinars or sell directly through a sales letter or through a sales page. We talk about every different method, and we have a lot of great content here. You could see all of the different experts, people that talk about their different ways of charging, you know, the different types of customers you interact with, how you can nurture customers. Sean Hart, who's so financially successful, he's the one who told me, don't stop charging. He's like, if a client hasn't stopped reading your emails, that means they want to buy more stuff from you. It was like, if you add another upsell, if they're still there, they want to buy something else. And you can see there's your face, you look awesome. Jesse is someone I've known for 12 years. He talked about he does publishing. So if you want your books in an airport, that's kind of his expertise. If you're like, oh, I want to get my book where people going on a plane can see it, or I can be in a Books a Million, that's what he does. And he started charging more money, and he started getting better clients and bigger successes. And one of the things that, that I learned from some of these interviews is that it allows you to give your client a better service because you have more bandwidth or more money available to spend more time on them, to provide more offers, to do better customer support. Jordan Harbinger, what an amazing interview. His podcast, I've known Jordan for 12 years, 12 million downloads a month. And all of his stories, he's like, oh, I was hanging out with Conan O'Brien, and I was hanging out with Chelsea Handler. We were all talking about the challenge of booking guests. And to him, those are just like regular people, right? All the people we see like hosting the Tonight Show and what all the different shows are, right? That's his circle because they all interview the same level of guests. And the challenges he faces are so fascinating. So if you want to grow your podcast, boy, that's a great interview. I was really, really lucky to get him. I'm just lucky that I met him before he became super famous. We get to learn things from people that are doing just different things. So that's what I really wanted to bring together. Rather than all one type of expert, we have sales experts, we have publishing experts, people that uses books for their business, people that would never use a book for their business. So it's really designed not for you to watch all 30 talks, but instead to find one or two that give you that nugget that you can implement. The first time I went to a conference, I wrote down everything, and I was like, if I did all of this, it would take me 2 years to implement. And by that, next year's conference will happen. So it's really about going in and finding the people who match what you want to learn. If you want to be a podcaster, I've got the right person. If you want to sell services or you want to host live events, I've got some amazing people. But what it's really about is breaking through your barrier. Whatever you're charging, it can be more. The first time I broke through a price barrier, I was charging $4,000, and I was in a talk, and this guy said, Jonathan, what do you charge for a ghostwriting project? I was like, $4,000. I'm charging so much. And he was like, what are you, a coward? Double it. And I said, okay, I guess it's 8. He goes, I said double it again. And so I started charging $10,000. I made a sale the next day. And I was like, whoa, it's the first time anyone's insulted me, and it made me a bunch of money. So I was like, that's a tough method. Like, what's wrong with you? What are you, weak? Double it again. And he shouted at me twice. And I was glad I raised my hand because that was cool. It just showed me that most of the time we're not making enough money because of what's in here. We have these imaginary barriers. We think it's too much money. We think people can't afford it. And yeah, there are plenty of people who can't afford my most expensive services, but there are tons of people who can. So all of that's part of the summit. We really dive into figuring out what's holding you back, whether it's a mental block or whether it's you've just never said it. For most people, if you say, why haven't you ever had someone pay you $20,000? It's probably because they've never said, I have a $20,000 offer or a $100,000 offer or a $300,000 offer or $1 million offer.
Yeah. It's so true. This is exactly, I hope this is, I know, I'm going to say it this way. I know people watching, listening to this need to hear it because we all need to keep hearing this. No matter what level we're at, there's bigger markets, there's bigger thoughts, and a big reason we're in the cycles that we're in is because it's just that stretch. We got to, break through. I like that barrier example you shared of 4,000 and doubling. And then a day later, 2 days later, hey, 10 grand. Oh my gosh, I found the right person. Oh, and it's not just like, I hope people hear this too. It's not just about making more money. When the business is taking on more capital, how you can build system, how you can build team, the level of how you service that market changes as well. You have access to a lot more resource. So it is about also providing a higher service. So this is going to be great. I put this up. Hopefully I spelled everything right. highticketaffiliatesummit.com. Did I spell that right?
Yeah, that's great.
Affiliate Summit. Okay, cool. Yes. Go check this out. Grab your free ticket. Listen to some. I mean, Jordan Harbinger, his name's huge. There's some really big players and many more that are part of this. People that have got real results, solving real problems, and closing massive deals. So, Jonathan, thank you for taking the time to put this all together, because 30 plus people and all those interviews and summits, we still have a little, post syndrome, postpartum syndrome, or whatever the right phrase is from the last summit we did. So, thank you for putting your time together to do that, and for showing up to share kind of the inside track with us today. Any closing thoughts you'd like to add?
Yeah, my final thought is grab a ticket. We're giving them away. Check out some of the talks and just look for that one nugget that can help you to raise your level. Maybe you just need someone to shout in your face, double it. I said double it again. Sometimes it's the smallest sentences that can change your life. And also, it's just a lot of fun. Some of the stories people are sharing, Jordan shares all these really amazing celebrity stories and about booking big guests, and a lot of every single guest shared something that was really a nugget of wisdom. And I think you're just going to absolutely love it. So it's absolutely worth grabbing a ticket, checking it out. You can watch the talks that work for you. Don't worry, you don't have to take a week off of work. And you can really just dive in. And I can't wait to hear about some of the amazing successes from people who watch today's video and then check out the summit next week.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan. Sales Ascender, thank you for spending your time with Jonathan and myself today. You are great. There's greatness all around you. Keep looking for it. You're not alone in this business owner entrepreneur journey. We're going to be bringing more spotlight guests here that are on the front lines doing cool things, solving cool problems, and we will be meeting more and more new cool people.